to part 6.3 in our breathing series, and congratulations if you have made it all the way through every single video. I am very impressed. I am the Techie Flautist, and today we are going to be looking at advanced breathing exercises for flautists. This video has been specifically designed, obviously, for advanced students and focuses on how to practice your breathing. If you're looking for something that's more of how to breathe, then I highly recommend you check out parts 1 through 4, which I have linked down in the description. So I have picked my top 3 favorite advanced flute breathing exercises, and these could really keep you going for the rest of your flute playing career, provided you don't get bored with them. And in order to stave off boredom, it's important to set practice goals. Without a goal, you will never know what you are trying to achieve or if you have achieved it. Ultimate breathing goal number 1 is to take a deep, fast, easy, and quiet breath. Goal number 2 is to be able to use all of your air efficiently. So most professional flautists recommend that you are capable of holding a single note for at least 20 seconds. And this is because the average musical phrase will last for about 10 seconds. However, as with all things that are averaged out, there are going to be phrases that are considerably shorter and unfortunately considerably longer. However, most of the longest musical phrases will still fit into about 15 seconds. Having said that, when you are performing, you're dealing with nerves and a whole heap of other factors that can interfere with your ability to play your instrument. So you always want to have your practice goals set for above what you need to be able to do in a performance, so that when you're not in those ideal perfect conditions, you can still achieve what you need to achieve. So most flautists will try and aim to be able to sustain a note for 20 seconds. However, I have encountered some who prefer to aim for somewhere between 30 to 40 seconds, which is a little bit insane, but that's okay. I recommend that you start off aiming for 20 seconds and don't try and shoot further until after you have achieved that first goal. And make sure when you achieve it, you give yourself some form of reward, be that chocolate. No, food rewards aren't great, they cause other problems, but I don't know, take a nice walk or go shout yourself a chai latte at a cafe or a hot bubble bath, something fun. Or buy yourself a new piece of music, that's probably a good musical reward for a musical goal. I should totally do that more often. And your third and final practice goal for breathing is to have your breath functioning on autopilot. This goal is really just a matter of time. The way to get your brain to sort of function on automatic mode is to repeat an action again and again and again, and to have a certain stimulus that triggers the action. So in our case, it is the start of a piece of music or a breath mark within the music should trigger us to take a massively large flute breath. So you can kind of look at the achievement of this goal as being kind of like a byproduct of effective practice, but it's got to be dedicated and deliberate practice. Now, as with any form of exercise, frequent and regular sessions is infinitely more beneficial than random one-off attempts, which really aren't going to help you to achieve much at all, if anything. It'll probably just make you feel frustrated because you're like, I still can't do this, and you can't do it because you haven't done it for a month. So, without further ado, I present you with Exercise 1, sustaining a note. It's really not that exciting, I'm sorry, but it can definitely be challenging if you want it to be. So, I want you to pick 4 different notes that span across the range of your instrument. My favorite ones to use are low C, middle D, middle A, and then high G. But it really doesn't matter which notes you use, just so long as it covers the general range of your instrument. Next, I want you to draw up this really cool table practice tracker, just so you can work out what you're achieving. Or head over to my website, thetechyflautist.com, and pick up your free downloadable copy that I made just for you. There is a link down in the description to make your life easier. And then what you're going to do is you're going to play each note four times? No, you're going to play each note 3 times. And the first time you play it, you're going to play it mezzo forte, which is the dynamic you use when you don't use a dynamic. Just random. Learned that when I studied composition. Then you're going to do it as quiet as you possibly can, so pianissimo, and then you're going to do it the opposite, which is as loud as you possibly can. And you'll find at the different dynamic ranges, you'll be able to hold notes for different lengths. It will also be affected by the register of your instrument. And then you're going to set your metronome on crotchet equals 60. You're going to take a massive Hawaii breath and fill up those lungs. And then you're going to play your note and count the crotchets and see how long you can last for. And then jot your time down in the little graph that you either drew yourself or downloaded. And that's it. That's the first exercise. Now, to begin with, you probably won't notice much improvement in how long you can hold the note for. However, over time, that will change, and it's really important to remember that progress is not always linear. It doesn't always go like this. Sometimes we might start progressing a little bit, but then, I don't know, something will happen, we'll get a cold, or we've just been really busy and our head's not in the right space, and so we might sort of plateau out for a bit, or even dip down. But then, if you push through, trust me, I speak from experience, you've got to actually push through, but you will start going up again. So that is just something to keep in mind. So let's give it a go and see how long I can hold it for. That's my lovely metronome, crotchet equals 60. I'm just going to pick, what am I going to do? Middle A, and I am going to hold it quietly. And I haven't warmed up, so I do apologize. So I'm not great at counting, but I think that was a little over 20 seconds, which means I need to do a little bit of work because I personally am aiming for 25 at the moment. Exercise number 2, quick breaths, is from this lovely book called The Flute Player's Book by Vernon Hill. This is sort of like a textbook on how to play flute. It's very different from the Trevor Y practice books in that this includes a lot of text, like written information, so it actually is explaining like the bodily mechanics of how we play flute, which I think is really interesting. It does also include a few exercises. However, if you want books with lots of exercises, Trevor Y is the way to go. If you want explanations, then Vernon Hill. So, the exercise we are going to use is found on page 101, which is before 103. There we go. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick a really easy scale that you know like as well as the back of your hand. So like F major or G major. I might go with F major. And you're going to grab your metronome and you are going to set it to 208. Which is ridiculously fast, but bear with me, it'll make more sense in a moment. And then, well, actually it gets wetter first. Then you're going to breathe all the way out. So you want to start with absolutely no air in your lungs. And you're going to play one note of your scale per crotchet beat. That's why the metronome is so fast. And you're going to aim to take a tiny little miniature snap breath in between each note. And by the time you hit the span of an octave, you will have breathed 7 times. And the idea is you will then be completely full of air. This technique is really, really useful if you're playing pieces like Bach's Suite in B minor, the Polonaise. The section is like called the double. Don't know why. I should probably look that up. I probably knew once and I've just forgotten. But anyway, it's like semiquaver passage and it's quite fast and there is just nowhere to breathe. But this technique could sort of help get you through that passage. Also, if you're playing really any of the flute technical studies ever written, they're all just pages of semiquavers or demi-semiquavers with nowhere to breathe. So again, this is the perfect place to test it out. So, bear with me. I will give it a go and we shall see what happens. So, my metronome is going on to 208. That is insanely fast. I'm going to use F major. I am breathing out, which goes against everything I've ever learnt. Okay, I'm definitely not full of air. I'm like, maybe this full. Oh, that's terrible. That and mildly embarrassing. So, if you're like me and found that really, really hard, what you would do is you would slow it down. So, for me, I reckon I'd slow it down to 140. Get it comfortable at that speed. Might take you a week or so, maybe longer. Maybe. I'll let you know how I go. And then gradually over time start bumping it up. And that 208 would be like your goal for this activity. If you follow me on social media, I might post when I achieve it so you can like keep me accountable and poke me if you haven't heard anything and you think you should have. Moving along. Exercise number 3 and our lucky last exercise for today is kind of a bit weird, but that's okay because I think it still works. So it is taken from the, of course, lovely Trevor Y practice book 5, which focuses on breathing and scales. You can buy the practice books individually, but I got this like blue edition. It had some name, but basically it's just all 5 practice books rolled into one, so it's less to carry, which is good when you travel around to teach a bit. So the exercise we are going to be using is on page 154, and it's good because you don't actually need your flute to do this. You do, however, need a tape measure. Not every time you do it though, just sometimes. So for this exercise, what you're going to do is you're going to breathe all the way out, and you want to breathe out to the point where it becomes uncomfortable. So in order to do that, you breathe out first. Sorry, I can't do this and talk at the same time. And then once you've breathed out all the way, you want to breathe out again 3 more times just to make sure. So you're like, now I really have no air. Whew. And then what you want to do is you want to breathe in and you want to fill up your abdomen and diaphragm area first. Then you want to fill up your ribs and intercostal area, and then finally your back and sort of thoracic area. Then you let it all out and you do it again. So you know how when you do sit-ups, you don't just do one sit-up, you do like, I don't know, 10 or 50 or whatever number it is you're up to. Trevor Y recommends that you do this 6 times in a row, and he thinks you should do it 3 times a day. Now, that is a lot. However, he's a really, really good flute player and he knows what he's talking about. In order to track your progress, this is where our lovely tape measure comes in. What you want to do is once a month, you want to take your measurements. Now, please do not freak out. I know particularly Australian culture is rather funny about measurements and body image and weight and all that fun stuff. But size has well, very little to do with it and is kind of completely irrelevant, because we are wanting to find out how much our lungs are physically expanding. So grab a friend and grab a tape measure, because it's really hard to do this on yourself. And you want to measure a few inches. Is that a few inches? I don't know what inches are. Below your armpit. Basically the top of your ribs-ish. So get your lovely tape measure, take it around, and then breathe all the way out. Like crazy, breathe all the way out. Do the 3 last little huffs and take your measurement, write it down. Then you want to breathe all the way in, so fill up with air, which naturally everything will expand, and then you want to take your measurement again, and then the difference between those two numbers is your lung capacity. Now, an untrained person should be able to get their torso, fancy sewing word, their torso to expand between 2.5 to 5 centimeters. However, a trained person should be able to get between 10 to 12 centimeters, which is actually quite a lot. So if you do as Trevor Y recommends and practice this, do the breathing thing 6 times, 3 times a day, then over the course of 12 to 18 months, yes, this requires a long-term commitment, you will actually be able to double the capacity of your lungs, which is very exciting if you're a flute player, because that will really, really help you with your breathing. Now, once you've got your expansion capacity up to a level that you're happy with, I highly recommend checking in with yourself every 6 months just to make sure you are maintaining it, because just like in the sporting or academic realm, what you don't use, you lose. And I would hate for you to have to go back and redo all that work. Ooh, and I should probably just mention, if you start feeling kind of lightheaded, dizzy, and a little bit faint, it's probably a good idea to pause and just sit down, preferably on the floor, and hold your breath. Basically, this is our body's way of letting us know that it is not used to having this excessively large amount of air, and it is not happy with you and what you're doing. So it's like, I am going to make you feel dizzy. And you can actually faint if you don't stop. So it is really important to stop and have a rest. However, the more you breathe like this, the more your body will actually get used to it and adapt. I think I've only ever heard of one person who unfortunately had to pick a different instrument just because their body wasn't able to deal with the amount of oxygen. But that's definitely not an everyday scenario. It is, however, something you should be aware of. Most beginners go through a few dizzy moments when they first start playing. And that's pretty much everything that I have to say about breathing, aside from breathing with straws. But that's another video for another time and is dependent on Posty delivering my package of straws, because I'm after a particular type of straw that, believe it or not, is not readily available in Australia, so I had to order it online. But that's okay. It is on its way. Now, if on the off chance you do desire to know even more about breathing, I recommend you pick up a copy of The Art of Playing Flute by, I've got to get this right, Roger Matter? Sorry, I'm terrible with names. But Volume 1, the entire volume, is dedicated to breath control. And it is I'll tell you how many pages. It is a 68-page workbook all about breathing. It's very, very technical, very in-depth. It's probably more geared to people at a postgraduate level. For me personally, it's a bit too technical. But if that's your thing, then go for it. Have fun. Enjoy. So, I hope you have enjoyed this breathing series. If you have, then please give us a thumbs up and maybe hit the subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss out on an episode. And if you have any questions, or maybe you've been working on these exercises and you like have this aha moment and discover something, why not share it with us down below and we can all learn from each other. And of course, don't forget to pick up your free breathing resources down from the link in the description below at theturkeypilates.com. And until next time, happy practicing!